What's up, guys? Welcome back for another video. Boozer here. Thanks for stopping by. Today's video, we're going to talk about the deck of fate that's currently active right now. It's a little bit late, this video, but I wanted to prepare you guys something that was more complete. I was working on this early in the morning today before work, and then I felt that it wasn't good enough to release, so I just decided to come back home to finish it off and then give you guys some more complete information. But yeah, we're going to talk about the deck of fate and how best to complete it or how best to progress through it. So let's jump right into that. All right, so here is the adventure deck of fate. It's a 4-day event, and it's going to be, including Pinpoint gear. So Pinpoint gear, as you guys all know, is the exclusive set from the exclusive event dungeon that we had. It's currently, no longer accessible anywhere in the game, but we have a good chunk of it here in this deck of fate. I did mention that it would be a good idea for Plarium to put this in the deck of fate because it makes it a little bit more accessible to more players, because not everybody was able to farm large amounts of energy, farming very high stages of the event dungeon. So this event gives more players the opportunity to pick up some of this Pinpoint gear. Pinpoint gear is actually a really strong set. So we go into the set. Here is a 9-piece set. Each individual piece gives you a little bit of a bonus. So if you pick up one piece, it already has an extra 20 accuracy on it. 2 pieces, which is very popular. Basically just add 2 random accessory pieces to your arbor and you're gonna get an extra 10% speed. Just an example, right? These are very easy ways to get some extra stats, key stats actually, on some of your key champions. With that in mind, if you complete a 4-piece set, your champion will be equipped with a intercept stack, which is really good at mainly protecting your champion from being hard CC'd, the main one being sheep. So putting a 4-piece pinpoint set on your champion in arena prevents it from being sheeped one time. And then of course you get 2 stacks here for 6 pieces and then 4 stacks at 9 pieces. I don't think I've ever seen a champion with a 9-piece pinpoint set. But yeah, that'd be pretty crazy. I think most arena champions find space for the 4-piece set, and I think that's more than enough. So going back to the rewards here, all these pieces are actually pinpoint sets. So if you go for the artifacts, they're all pinpoint gear. And then you go for the accessories, they're all pinpoint gear. So at least we get all pinpoint gear. That's great. Small drawback is that we don't know which faction they're going to be in. So for example, you don't know which faction the accessories will be in. So that's a little bit of a bummer. We have the Serpent Path or Serpent Deck event where they were giving out specific factions and we knew exactly what we were getting, which was really nice for the stone skin and protection pieces. In this case, we don't know what factions they're in, so that's a little bit of a drawback. But hey, we get 6-star mythical pieces here. There's only going to be 3 artifact pieces and 3 accessory pieces, so it's not a lot. But honestly, each one of these 6-star mythical pieces is easily worth a couple thousand energy if you were to farm stage 30 event dungeon. So having them available here gives more people access to higher quality pinpoint gear, which is awesome. I mean, for me, I spent probably like 50,000 energy in the pinpoint event. I don't know, at least I would say. And honestly, that's like nothing over 3 months. And I would, I greatly appreciate like having access to this through, through just a deck of fate, right? Just doing normal dungeon and training events. The other rewards are pretty lackluster. 4-star glyphs here, really bummer pieces, especially when they're giving us 6-star glyphs here. Why not just give us 5-star glyphs? 2 epic ores, 2 legendary ores, and a primal ore. I mean, 3 dust, 3 powder. They're pretty low grade rewards. I mean, 6-star speed glyph. These are fine, like the 2 legendary ores and the primal ore is fine, but the other ones are pretty low grade rewards. Obviously, the main focus here is going to be the gear pieces. It would have been nice to see a bit more artifact pieces, because those are probably the pieces that are hard to get, because the event dungeon was dropping plenty of accessories, but not so much the artifact pieces. You can kind of see here, there's only 3 legendary artifact pinpoint pieces, but then there's 6 accessory pieces, and then only 3 mythical artifact pieces and 3 mythical accessories. There's 6 epic pinpoint artifact pieces, and then there's 6 epic accessory pieces as well. So not too many artifact pieces. I would have appreciated a bit more of the artifacts, but it is what it is. Still pretty good. Looking forward to that. Also, I noticed that these rewards are actually pretty good. They actually didn't include like silver in here, which is really, really low, but these are really good. There's no pin feature for this deck, so none of that. I think with the better rewards, you're not going to get the pin feature to try to snipe down some of these high-end rewards here. So how are we getting points in this event? So it's going to be training and dungeon diving. So luckily we do have an example of this from previous Deck of Fates, so we can analyze that as well and see which is the best way to get the points for this deck. So let's jump right into that. All right, guys, so blinding spreadsheet here, courtesy of Saf from HH Gaming. So thank you so much for putting this together. It is a modified version. I modified it to work for this deck, of course. And what I came up with was basically, if you were to do this Deck of Fate entirely on dungeons without training any champions along the way, you're going to be spending about 35,000 energy doing hard 10 dungeons, about 35,000 energy to flip every single card. Of course, if you're, reasonably efficient, you would at least apply some food with your dungeon diving. But the most efficient way is actually training up food while doing campaigns. So you can kind of see here, if you go into the far right here, it's going to take you about 7,200 energy just building up 5-star champions through campaign with, of course, the XP boost. So this event is actually quite friendly in terms of total points and energy required, resources required, because you can basically double dip, right? You can get points while you're training, you can get points while you're dungeon diving. So it actually works out pretty well, as opposed to like previous Deck of Fates or previous events where they only had one dungeon diving or one training event, and then they supplemented it with shards and stuff. In this event, there's no shards, so there's no easy way to get quick points, unless you buy the points, of course. But the overall resource spent is actually not insane, right? So you do need, about 8,000, 7,000, 8,000 energy just for the campaign, but you're farming campaign, you're farming up food. Keep in mind, you do need, the food, the shards, to pull out the food, and then you can train the food, right? But the good thing is we do have a champion chase starting today and during this entire deck, so you can actually get some additional points and double dip in the champion chase as well. So pulling mystery shards totally makes sense. It's just more work, right? So if you guys are, don't have the time for this, then it's not going to work out for you. But you guys, it's not an all or nothing deck as well. So it actually, you can just flip a couple cards and call it a day, or you can just skip the entire deck entirely. It's totally up to you. Pinpoint set is actually just, it's mainly a PvP set, right? So if you're not super keen on PvP, you're probably not going to be too keen on putting a set together for your debuffer champion, for example. So I do have some older decks here to compare some of our current values. So this deck was actually from almost 2 years ago. You can kind of see here that the 6-star points and the rank up is significantly higher. I'll show you guys the 6-star gear here and what we're working with. So the 6-star legendary gear was 32 points in the current deck, and the 6-star gear from this deck back in January 2023 was worth 75 points. As well as a 6-star rank up was worth 530 points and currently is worth 300 points. So you can kind of see how crazy the deck point requirements have gone up over the last 20 months or so. So moving down further, we have the Freya training event. This was an absolutely ridiculous training event for Freya, because the secondary requirement was soul stones and not many people had soul stones. So it was basically done through training, and the training point breakdown was actually really, really bad. So you can kind of see here, 200 for a 6-star, it's 300 for a 6-star here. So it's much more reasonable here. And then obviously all the values are much worse going down for the Freya training portion of it. So you see 150 and then 15 and 5. You go 70, 35, 10, and 3. So the values got cut pretty significantly. I believe it was about 30 to 40% in most areas. It's just a significantly more resource heavy event. Also, no double dipping as well, since it was only soul stones and trading. So the Freya Deck of Fate was incredibly difficult relative to this Deck of Fate. We have a very close comparable here in July. We have the Serpent Stone Skin Gear event. This was in July. And you see that the values for that event is basically exactly the same that we have here. The biggest difference being that the Serpent event was actually training and soul stones as well. So, you know, you're going to be gaining most of your points from training, no double dipping unless you had soul stones, then you can use soul stones. But in this case, it's still a pretty big energy spend if you didn't have, you know, soul stones to supplement your training with, right? So otherwise it's just all training, but it's a little bit more friendly than the Freya, as you can clearly see here. And honestly, the time difference was not that long. It was like 3-month time gap. The Freya one was just downright awful. I have some dungeon info here from Fatalis. Fatalis was actually one of the exceptions for the dungeon diving part being extremely punishing. So you see here, 6-star mythical pieces were worth 31 points for the Fatalis Deck of Fate. And in this event, this current deck, it's worth 40 points. So you can kind of see, again, the pretty big gap here. You got 25 points. Afterwards, you got 32 points for a 6-star legendary versus 25 from the Fatalis Deck of Fate. So it seems like any kind of guaranteed champion from these decks, they heavily adjust the point values to basically make it cost more, which makes sense, right? It's a guaranteed champion. It's hard to compare the guaranteed champions Deck of Fates versus non-Deck of Fate, non-guaranteed champion, right? The values are just too skewed. So you got, for example, like you lose significant value here. You went from 31 to 40 for the Fatalis one, and that was, again, very punishing. No double dipping possible. It was shards and dungeon diving only. So hopefully I illustrated that actually this event is actually not too bad in terms of total resources that you need to spend, because you can double dip, you can train, and you can farm gear at the same time. So let's see which is actually more efficient, right? Are you going to do mostly campaign? What about farming food along with dungeons? Let's see which is most efficient and which route that you want to take. All right, so hopping back into the spreadsheet for the current deck that we have. Like I said, if you guys are doing 12-3 brutal, it's going to take you, you know, under 8,000 energy, building up just 5-star champion, 5-star food. So just based off of the point breakdown here, the most efficient dungeon in terms of points per energy is actually level 20. So level 20 gives you the most points per energy, followed closely by level 16. After that, it's going to be 24, and then any hard stage, of course, the highest hard stage will be 10, and then it'll be 25. So the last thing you want to do is basically doing 25 or anything worse, anything else other than these guys. But, you know, some people will do 10 and then still be more efficient than doing 25. 24, you know, is more efficient than 25 or doing 10. Of course, you don't get as much gear or better gear, of course. So those are the dungeon levels that you guys should be aiming for. And to break down what is the efficiency of farming food along with farming gear in dungeons. So assuming this math breakdown, this is creating one champion up to rank 5. It's going to cost you about 12,500 energy to go this route, to go with the training food along with dungeon diving. Obviously, you get some gear from this, but you're paying a pretty big premium in terms of the energy. So if you factor in roughly 12,500 energy compared to the campaign version, you're paying an extra 5,000 energy just to basically get some gear out of it, right? So it depends what's most important to you. You can definitely do the dungeon diving while training food. But campaign seems significantly more efficient. Also, just a quick breakdown here of what is more efficient: 12-3 versus Nightmare. 12-3 is going to be more points per energy, but the Nightmare campaign will be, first of all, faster because you're doing the runs twice as fast, and it'll be a little bit more energy efficient, but you won't get as much dungeon diving points out of it, and therefore not as much total points out of it. So I recommend doing brutal. You're gonna be doing the points a lot faster. You're gonna get more silver, but it's gonna take you more time, right? It's gonna take you more time to go through each of those runs. But it just really depends what's more important to you. So yeah, that's gonna be the breakdown for the video. Hopefully it was insightful and helpful. I mean, in terms of overall spend, 7,200 or 8,000 energy is actually not too bad, considering that Freya's Deck of Fate was closer to 40,000 or 35,000 energy. It's absolutely ridiculous, right? In terms of, doing it straight dungeon diver without any training, it's pretty ridiculous, but because we can double dip, the campaign farming food looks pretty good. Keep that in mind. Also, we have that, like I said, we have that champion chase that's happening in a couple hours here, and that's a nice little side double dip you can do, so you can get some extra points pulling mystery shards and all that stuff. If you're doing void pulls, then it's going to be some extra pulls there as well. So it's actually not too bad. And of course, the pinpoint gear is very, 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 very juicy, and it's actually good. It's good for players that weren't able to do the high stages of the Odin event, right? Because everyone can do a random dungeon, everyone can do some training, right, along the way. And it's not like an all or nothing event, so just pick up a couple pieces and call it a day. So I think it's a good event. Personally, I think it's a good event. I'm gonna go pretty hard on it. Shouldn't be too bad, to be honest. It's just training. It's just a lot of like little, a lot of work, right? A lot of time and work. But in terms of value, I think it's pretty good value here. Okay. All right, guys. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Did I make any mistakes? Double check my work, of course. But based on what I was working with, makes sense to me. All right, guys. So thanks a lot for watching. Appreciate your time as always. And I'll see you guys in the next video.